Right on the money, 5 minutes. It's good University of Wisconsin discipline right there. Ms. Lonsberry, I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Your testimony is incredibly detailed. It's filled with a ton of very constructive recommendations. I very much appreciate that. In one part, you advise Congress to address the adverse behaviors and practices of the PRC rather than just the bad actions of specific entities. Tease out that argument for me a little bit, if you would, and what does it mean in terms of the specific disclosure requirements that we should put in place so that Americans can better understand the broader risk of doing business with the PRC as opposed to just specific bad actors?
Thank you for your question. I think in general, it's not just one company as a U.S. subsidiary or U.S. registered affiliate of a traditional Chinese company that needs to be targeted. It's the entire practice of having Chinese subsidiaries. All of them are somehow affiliated to the party. So you can't really say, and I know Lighthizer said this as well, and you in your opening remarks, that a company is an American company that is private and removed from its original founder located in China. There's no such thing. We've looked at TikTok, and you've looked obviously at other Chinese companies, Weixin or Tencent as well. But it's the overall, I would say, octopus arms of these subsidiaries that needs to be further scrutinized. And again, tools and methods to ensure that the entire, I would say, relationship structure is audited and considered. That needs to be clearer.
Last year, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board came to an agreement with the PRC to allow Chinese auditing firms to conduct due diligence on Chinese firms whose securities are traded in the U.S. But when they reviewed the quality of PRC audits, the audits failed across the board. Is it fair, in your opinion, to say that American firms that want to list in the U.S. go through more rigorous due diligence and regulatory compliance than PRC firms do?
In my experience working and talking to American companies from within China, and I will say this, even the big four, Western company accounting firms are actually run like franchises. They're not held to the same standards as headquarter, and I have experienced a difference. So while it's fine to say that branding or oversight of U.S. companies versus Chinese companies is safe and secure because of a brand name, the structure of those business organizations is quite different, and I think needs closer scrutiny.
Mr. Kazi, you're basically saying to us that we can't trust data coming out of the PRC, right? At no point since China's accession to the WTO can we trust data less than at the present moment, correct?
Correct.
So if we can't trust PRC data, but U.S. banks continue to rely on it, does that in and of itself pose a systemic risk to our financial system and our economy?
It absolutely can. I mean, you see with what happened over the last few years, where Chinese, equities just got absolutely, hammered because of the tech crackdowns, of course, everything that's happened in the economy. But, most of the stories coming out of the investment banks were always rosy. Beijing's about to become pragmatic. Tech crackdown's about to come to an end. Don't worry, there's going to be a stimulus. The economy is looking really great. You name it, but it's all based on just guesswork and really bad data.
What should we then do, or what should the SEC and other financial regulators do to address and diminish this systemic risk?
Yeah, I think the first thing is we need, to figure out on what basis the banks, we need to first, I think, give the SEC the tools to establish higher standards for research and all of that, as I discussed. I think we can treat data that, official government data coming from the PRC as if it were just any other country, like the Census Bureau data we produce or something else. So we need, to first of all make sure that's not being done. And I think, look, we need to ask the banks, on what basis are you going out there and making recommendations about different investments in specific companies or specific sectors when you can't trust the numbers that you're utilizing?
And then quickly, Mr. Shumson, I'm running out of time. Mr. Kazi wants us to bring all the major asset managers in front of the committee. I suspect they're not going to be eager to come and ask them some questions. I suspect they'd also disagree with your analysis that China is no longer a good place for long-term investment. What aren't they seeing, or is it willful ignorance on their part?
Well, I think it's one of it is a lot of them now in the last few years has been investing into China, setting up companies in China, and they're raising money in China. And then the CIC, the China Investment Corp, the state-owned, essentially central investment fund, has been investing into many different companies, those funds. So they, in a way, their hands are tied. They have conflict of interest.
Mr. Krishnamurthy is now